Good morning, everybody. My name is Garrett Rohrbaugh with Kampstra Wealth Management. Before we get started, I want to thank SEK for the opportunity to speak with you all this morning. I also want to thank SEK for me not being the 8:30 slot, because talking about retirement plans at 8:30 might get a quarter of the audience to fall asleep. Little quick overview about who we are at Kampstra Wealth Management. We're locally owned and operated here in Gettysburg. Our firm has actually been around since the early 70s, and we're actually, we predate ERISA, which is one of the primary retirement plan rules and laws that was put into place to govern. We really have two main focus points of our business. One is to provide customized personal financial planning, and the second one is to work on workplace retirement plans. I lead our workplace retirement plan division. We think it's important to be credentialed to provide the top quality of service to our clients. And you'll see there in the box on the top right, three main certifications that we have for our advisors on staff. Certified Plan Fiduciary Advisor, that's my designation, working specifically with employers on their plans. We also have Certified Financial Planners, or CFPs, on staff. And then on the investment management side of the operation, we have a Certified Investment Management Analyst. At Kampstra, we manage everything from 401ks, cash balance plans, simple IRAs, and we also work in the municipal space too for some Pennsylvania clients. So on the first part of my presentation today, we're going to cover Secure Act 2.0. Act 2.0 was actually passed at the end of 2022. It was actually, they didn't give us much time to implement some of these rules. It was passed by President Biden on the 29th of December, that is. And Secure Act 2.0 is kind of a mammoth. It has over 90 provisions related to workplace retirement plans. And what's really tricky about Secure Act 2.0 is some of these rules started as early as when pen hit the paper, and some of them go all the way out to 2033. And also some of the rules go back and clarify some of the technical issues from the first Secure Act that was passed in 2019. So you have to keep a close eye on some of the dates involved with Secure Act 2.0, because there's a lot of moving pieces. And I have on the slides, as you'll see, some of the dates there of when pieces are effective. Biggest thing I always like to note when we're talking with clients about Secure Act 2.0 and what it means for their business is, you'll see there at the very bottom, this isn't a federal mandate for a workplace retirement plan law. We're getting close, but instead the government at the federal level is trying to give a gentle nudge to business owners in the for-profit space by offering tax credits. In the not-for-profit space, there are some rules that are going to impact you all specifically, and I'm going to really try to tailor this first part of my presentation to how it's going to impact you all. But first, I do think it's important to talk about the tax credits. And why are we talking about retirement plans? Why is the government trying to nudge employers into starting workplace plans? Well, there's truly a coverage gap out there in America. Only about 68% of Americans have access to a workplace plan. And historically, we've really relied on pensions and then also Social Security. Well, over the last 20, 30, 40 years, we've really started to shift our mindset away from pensions, taking the risk off the employer and putting the risk on the employee to save for retirement. On the Social Security side of things, we hear all the time, you might see things on Facebook or even on LinkedIn, Social Security is going to run out. It's going to run dry. I think the government really wants us to have an additional leg to our stool to save on, right? So it's just not a one-legged stool. And I do think personally, the way Social Security is calculated, the benefit is going to change. For most people on the younger side of 40, probably going to look a little bit different. For those of you on the older side of 40, probably going to remain the same. But we're going to have to come up with some creative solutions. And this is the federal government's way of providing some creative solutions, because there's really two main costs with a workplace plan. One is the vendors. And you'll see there at the very top, to get your retirement plan started, there's some costs involved. And two, the second most expensive piece of the retirement plan equation is you as the employer putting money in on behalf of your employees. They've really opened up the floodgates to really entice employers to give company contributions, give employer contributions, and then also have tax credits there to pay the vendors that provide the services to you and your employees. Lastly, here at the very bottom, I think this is quite unique. So currently, there's a saver's credit, right? Depending on what level of income you make, and there at the very bottom, you'll see If you save in a workplace plan, you'll actually get tax credits at the end of the year. And a lot of times people get those as a check in the mail at the end of the year. Well, starting after 2026, you're actually going to get that tax credit. A lot of employees are going to get that savers credit actually as a in the form of a government match into their 403b or their 401k. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this works from a technical perspective, but the government realizes that a lot of people when they get that refund at the end of the year, a lot of people go and spend it, right? They get that cash, they go buy a new vehicle, maybe go get some furniture. Well, now the government's going to directly put that money into your workplace plan as a savers match. And you'll see it's going to be up to 50% up to $2,000 of the savers credit. So, how will the government be able to put money into your workplace retirement plan? They're going to have to work with the third party vendors. It's going to be interesting. That's why they gave it a lot of runway there to have the mechanicals ironed out. Probably the single most important slide on my entire presentation revolves around automatic enrollment and automatic escalation for you all in the nonprofit space. So, for every single retirement plan, regardless if it's 401k or 403b, and if you don't have a retirement plan in place yet and you're looking to put one into place, you're going to have to add automatic enrollment and automatic escalation. Automatic enrollment, essentially, whenever you become eligible for your workplace plan, you'll be automatically placed into the plan at a set savings percentage. It'll be outlined in the documents that your employer gives you in advance. And then, secondly, automatic escalation every year thereafter, your savings percentage will be increased by a set amount. And you'll see the caps there. For automatic enrollment, your employer is going to have to at least let you into the plan saving 3%, and then automatically increasing your savings amount 1% per year to a minimum of 10. So again, and that goes effective technically in 2025. But if you started a retirement plan on the 29th of December of last year, between then and the beginning of 25, you have to make sure your plan is updated to incorporate this rule. So this is definitely a trap, and we've been talking with a lot of the newer clients that we've been meeting with the last couple months to make sure that they already have this incorporated, so they don't have to go back and update their rules in advance. I do want to note there are some carve outs to this. So this rule does not apply to everybody, but pretty much everybody. You'll see there anybody that is in the government, anybody that is a church, anybody that has a simple IRA, any business that has been in existence for less than 3 years, anybody who has less than 10 employees. But once you hit that third year of establishment for your business, you're going to have a plan. Once you hit 11 employees, you're going to have a plan. So keep that in the back of your mind because this is coming quickly. A couple things on required minimum distributions, and I'm not going to hit on every single bullet point because with 92 provisions exactly in Secure Act 2.0, it's a lot to cover. But usually, whenever you save in a workplace plan, a lot of Americans save via pre-tax or traditional contributions. It lowers your taxable income today. In retirement, when you take it out, that's when you pay Uncle Sam. We always like to say he's your silent partner. He's going to get his cut. It's just a matter of when he gets his cut. So there is in the required minimum distribution age is the age at which you are first forced to take money out, and it has moved around quite a bit over the last 4 years. Prior to 2019, it was 70 and a half, and then as part of Secure Act 1, it got bumped back to 72. Effective now, the required distribution age is 73, and then you'll see there, starting in 2033, if you're born after 1959, gets bumped back to age 75. Additionally, there at the very bottom, I talked about pre-tax contributions, right? They lower your income today. When you take them out, you pay your taxes. On the flip side, you have Roth. With Roth, you get taxed up front. It grows tax-free. And then in retirement, you can take it out tax-free as well. It used to be that prior to the beginning of 2024, that you had to take required distributions from a Roth 401k or a Roth 403b. You don't have to take RMDs from a Roth IRA, but you do until the end of this year have to take RMDs from a Roth 401k. So a little bit of a tricky rule there, but they're actually going to be making them the exact same as a Roth IRA. Talking now about how money gets into your workplace plan. So it used to be a lot of people in my industry, we would wait till late October, early November. We'd get the press release from the IRS to say how much money you could save in a workplace plan or in an IRA, and it would get plastered all over social media. You might see people share it, like it all over the place. Well, now, and we always were anticipating and waiting, when is the news going to drop? Well, now the IRS is actually linking some of the contributions to inflation, which is nice because whenever we get the inflation prints later in, I guess, early fall, we'll know how much your contribution limits will be able to be increased. Something very unique about Secure Act 2.0 is it created an additional catch-up contribution. So some of you might be familiar with once you hit the magic age of 50, you can save a little bit extra in your workplace plan. Well, now the government, starting next year, is giving what's called the early 60s catch-up. And a lot of the thought process is there. When you're young, you might have kids, you're saving for your kids' college, you're paying off your mortgage, so you might not have been able to put as much money into your workplace plan as you originally desired. Well, now you're going to be able to do this age 60, early 60s catch up, save quite an extra bit more. Something else I want to note on this page there at the very bottom, that last bullet point, I guess starting next year, and this is another thing that you're going to want to make sure that you talk with your payroll vendor about, and also your workplace record keeper that you have for your 401k or 403b, is that those catch-up contributions that I mentioned are actually going to have to be Roth for anybody that makes more than $145,000. So I think that's something very important that we're going to have to keep in mind. Next key feature on Secure Act 2.0 that I think is quite unique is student loans. And in today's workforce, I know things have been starting to cool down a little bit in the economy, but there's still a challenge out there to find top quality talent and find ways to, one, attract them there, two, retain, and then three, provide benefits that encourages them to stay with you for a very long time. And the government has come out and realized that, again, a lot of employees, like I mentioned before, they're either one, paying off their student loan debt, or two, they're paying off their mortgage, they're saving for their child's school, and it really prohibits them or inhibits them from saving as much as they desire to save in their workplace plan. Well, there was a private letter ruling that the IRS passed back in 2016. Abbott Labs, they made one of the COVID vaccines. They actually asked the federal government, they said, hey, we've noticed that a lot of our younger demographics are not saving because they are putting so much money away for college or towards their student loans. They're trying to draw down their student loan debt. What if we viewed their money that they are putting into their student loan repayments as a hypothetical contribution to their 401k, and we matched based off of how much they were drilling away on their student loan debt? And eventually, this picked up steam, and last year, part of Secure Act 2.0, now, if and again, some of these provisions, I'll maybe pause real briefly. Some of these provisions inside of Secure Act 2.0 are required. Some of them are optional for employers. And for a lot of white collar employers, the student loan feature might be beneficial because it really gives you a chance to allow your employees to draw down their student loan savings, or student loan debt rather, but then also get a hypothetical match from the company put into their workplace plan, even if they are not directly saving in the plan. A couple things with this student loan repayment strategy here is that you'll see there in the middle, employees actually are able to self-certify their student loan repayments. Again, kind of strange where the employer actually won't have to go in and say, oh, Garrett paid $5,000 this year towards the student loans. I have to provide you as the employer with that information. And then you take that information and give me the match as a percentage of what that was in my salary into my retirement plan. Additionally, we've really started to see inside of America that a lot of older family members are starting to take on some student debt responsibilities for their child. And if you have a Parent Plus loan or any of your family has Parent Plus loans for your student, you could actually be eligible for this additional student loan match at your work. Lastly, here on this page, 529s. So historically, 529s have been an education savings tool, and they provided some really good benefits and really helped reduce a lot of upfront costs of college. But what we started to see is sometimes families get to the end of their students' college time and they have a surplus inside their 529. Well, if you were going to, you have a couple options. You, as the owner of that account, the child's the beneficiary, could retitle 529 and give it to maybe a younger child or another direct lineal descendant to help them eliminate some of their college expenses. Alternatively, you could also say, we'll give you as that child the excess money, but there's some tax penalties on that, 10% on any of the growth in those funds. And the government really realized that this kind of discourages families from saving a little extra in 529s. Well, starting here soon, and you'll see beginning of 2024, with a 529, you actually be able to give any unused 529 money to the beneficiary in the form of a Roth IRA. And there are some additional rules there with that, but it's quite unique. And this could be a very powerful retirement planning tool. And also, too, something that we've been telling a lot of our clients, uh, a lot of times with that 529, you put your own money in there for your child. You can technically change the name of that beneficiary from your child back to you and make 529 contributions. If you're trying to make a couple extra bucks inside of your retirement and starting to stash away a little extra, this is a quite a unique strategy. The government realizes as well that a lot of us are not prepared for emergencies. And you'll see statistics out there. Sometimes you'll see 75% of Americans can't even cover a $400 emergency today. And with the inflation that we've seen over the last year and a half, $400 doesn't get us very far anymore. And we really need to encourage good savings habits. And the government has created a couple extra ways for employees to save or to access money in emergencies within their retirement plan. You'll see the first one there is emergency savings accounts. And for anybody that is what is called a non-highly compensated employee at your office, could put money, if you elect as the employer, to put money in one of these sidecar savings accounts that they could access and that would not be subject to any penalties upon withdrawal because the contributions are put in there as Roth. And you're going to see, the reason why they're not going to be subject to any penalties is because they're going to be sitting in a cash-like investment. So they're not going to have any growth or any appreciation. Additionally, you'll see emergency withdrawals inside of workplace plans, 401ks, 403bs. Oftentimes, you'll have a provision in your plan called a hardship. Tornado comes through, rips off the roof of your house, you can get that money out. And with that hardship withdrawal, you're usually paying a 10% penalty. And now the government is giving a one-time waiver for you to make a $1,000 withdrawal out of your account and not be subject to that 10% penalty. It's pretty staggering to see how many people have very large balances inside of their workplace plans, but then don't have the savings inside of their personal savings account or their personal emergency fund to cover expenses like this. And this is kind of the government's way of getting employees to still save, but then know that they could get access to it on the side. At Kampstra Wealth Management, we like to really take baby steps when we work with our clients, work with our individuals. Before you start saving in your workplace plan, make sure you have 3 to 6 months worth of savings put back and then start saving in your 401k because the unexpected happens. I was up in Allentown meeting some of our clients a couple weeks ago. I got a nail in my tire and I had to, go out and get a brand new set of tires, $450. And thankfully, I have the financial wellness to make sure that that covers that. But there's a lot of Americans, like I mentioned before, that can't be prepared or don't have the ability to be prepared for that unexpected. As we shift gears here to Roth, I'm a huge fan of Roth, right? You get the tax-free growth opportunities out of Roth. And it used to be that only employees could put their own money inside the workplace plan as Roth. But effective now, technically, employees can take that company match, that company profit sharing, any of this, maybe you give a safe harbor match or something like that at your office, and you as the employee can pay the taxes on it today and get all the benefits of Roth. A lot of payroll systems, the 401k vendors, their systems aren't ready for this. The government gave us a lot of time, right? This law was passed on the 29th of December, and effective immediately, you could now take your employer money and put it in as Roth. If you or your employees desire to make that company contribution as Roth, and get those benefits, you're not going to have to pay payroll taxes on it. There at the very end, you'll see, but it's only going to be subject to income taxes. And we got to be careful about this because there's going to be a lot of employees out there that read, oh, I can take the money that my employer gives me and flip it and pay the taxes on it today as Roth, get all the benefits of Roth. It's going to be interesting to see how the payroll systems, payroll softwares work with this because, again, it's not going to be subject to payroll taxes, but are you going to get a 1099 at the end of the year and have to pay taxes on it that way? Or is there going to be a new sort of withholding through payroll to make sure that employee pays those taxes? Because a lot of employees aren't going to maybe be prepared or have money back in savings if they get a 1099 at the end of the year for taking all of that employer contributions as Roth. So more to be seen on this one. Probably my favorite rule inside of Secure Act 2.0 revolves around this concept of auto portability and lost and found. There's a lot of studies out there that say that the average American will change their job anywhere between 7, maybe even 10 times over the course of their working career. And oftentimes they leave their retirement plan from their old employer at that place of business. And we get the call, we've been doing workplace retirement plans since the early 70s. We get calls at least once a year from somebody that worked for one of our clients back in the early 90s and said, hey, I got this notice from the Social Security office that I might have money in an old retirement plan. Can you please go back and look? So we dust off the cobwebs, go through our archives, and see, hey, Garrett worked here, he had money here, but then he took a withdrawal and took it out as cash. A lot of times, what we realize and what we see is that that employee will take that money out when they quit as cash in hand. Well, this new rule called auto portability is really going to reduce that. So again, this is an optional provision. Whenever an employee goes from job A to job B, their money will automatically leave jobs A's 401k plan or 403b plan and migrate with them and follow with them. And it'll be a nice way for you to keep your balance and also have a better track of. Additionally, the Department of Labor is working to put together a lost and found. So essentially, you'll be able to type in your social security number to the Department of Labor's website, say, oh, back in 1985, I had, $500 in ABC's 401k plan. And then you can go and take that money, get it into your current IRA or your current employer's retirement plan. So I kind of like this because it really helps us get a full grasp and full understanding of where our financial picture stands. A couple things here on these next few slides here about distributions. So I spent a lot of time on the last couple of slides talking about putting money into the plans and new unique features there. Well, the government has really created a couple extra ways for employees to get their money out of the plan, either while they're still working or not too far after that. A couple of them here you'll see a federally declared disaster zone. So if something really drastic happens, tornadoes, hurricanes, things like that, employees can get money out of their plan without penalty. Very similar to, you guys might remember during COVID with the CARES Act, there was one called the COVID hardship withdrawal. And this is kind of a very similar version of that. You can repay your contributions, what you take out, you can repay them back to the plan, so you avoid your tax penalties and implications altogether. Additionally, the government's allowing individuals who are diagnosed with terminal illnesses to get money out early without penalties, victims of domestic abuse, or if you yourself might not be directly a victim of domestic abuse, but you are providing housing or lodging for somebody that's a victim of domestic abuse, you get money out of your retirement plan to cover some of those expenses. Also here, you'll see at the very top, you could take money out of your workplace plan to pay long-term care insurance premiums. Something for those of you that might have 403bs here in the room, which is quite interesting. Effective 1/1 of 2024, the hardship rules inside of 403Bs and 401Ks now become the same. Kind of an intricate little rule here, but it used to be prior to, I believe it was late 2018, maybe early 2019, you had to first exhaust your loan options inside of your workplace plan before taking a hardship. Well, that rule got changed for 401k plans only, and now it's going to be completely the same. Also, for those of you that might be charitably inclined, if you take qualified charitable distributions or UCDs out of your IRA, because they're only allowed out of your IRA, the limit used to be 100,000, but now they're indexed to inflation. So quite quite a positive rule there. So in terms of administration, if you guys oversee your workplace plan, you do wear that role of administrator, and a lot of times that is uploading payroll contributions to your workplace plan, approving a distribution, things of that nature, delivering required notices. And you'll see here at the very top, they're really trying to cut down on a lot of the notice delivery because it can be overwhelming. Anytime you change an investment, anytime you move vendors, things like that, you always have to give out notices well in advance. And you'll see here, for those employees that do not participate, they will only need to get the annual eligibility notice. So that's nice. You're not going to have to go and send it out to um, the people that are not involved in the plan. A couple other things here, and I've been kind of making a joke about this. Back right before COVID, Department of Labor came out with a rule saying that you can now send electronic notices exclusively. Well, the paper lobbyists got involved, and now you're going to be required to deliver one paper statement annually for a defined contribution plan, 401k, 403b, and then for defined benefit pension plans, you're going to have to be required to deliver a paper statement once every 3 years. You as the employee can opt out, but there are some changes there. Something here else that we've been talking about with a lot of our clients as potential traps from Secure Act 2.0 is this concept of long-term part-time employees. So in the original Secure Act that was passed in 2019, again, trying to get more employees into plans because currently there's only about 68% of Americans in their workplace retirement that have coverage, is this concept of long-term part-time employees. So essentially, in 2021, 2022, and 2023, if you had employees who worked 500 hours each year, January 1st of 2024, they have to be allowed into the plan. They don't have to get a company contribution. They just have to be allowed to save. And that was also only allowed for 401k plans. 403b plans were not part of that rule. However, part of Secure Act 2.0, they knocked that 3 years of eligibility down to 2. And 2023, 2024, if you have a long-term part-time employee who works 500 hours for you, they will now be allowed to save in the workplace plan on January 1 of 2025. So again, it's for their own contributions only. If you want to provide an employer contribution, you can. It would make things a little bit more complicated and a little bit more complex from an administrative perspective, but something very important to know. Additionally, 403Bs are quite unique in the fact that currently, in the current rule, anybody who is reasonably expected to work less than 20 hours a week and students are not required to be covered. There's a concept called universal availability. Essentially, anybody that's on your staff, except for a couple carve outs, like those first two I just mentioned, don't have to be covered. Well, quite possible that some students might be able to work 500 hours in 2 years at their university. Additionally, those people that work less than 20 hours a week, they will get ushered into your plan under this rule. So a lot of colleges, a lot of universities, a lot of hospitals, this is going to impact how many people they have to allow into the plan. A couple of things here briefly on Secure Act 2.0 that I want to touch base on. So the way we save in retirement plans, right? You put your money into the plan, you can invest in a mutual fund. A lot of people are familiar with mutual funds. A lot of people are familiar with exchange traded funds. And then also inside of a 401k and a 457, you can save in what are called collective investment trusts, or CITs. Currently, they are not allowed in 403b plans. They have a lot of similarities to a mutual fund, and one of the benefits to CITs are that they're a lot lower cost than your mutual fund sibling. And part of the rule of Secure Act 2.0 actually allowed CITs, from a tax code perspective, to be in your 403b plan. However, there's another gate that they have to cross through, and that's securities law. So some of you might see on LinkedIn, CITs are allowed. Well, tax code allows them now, but securities law doesn't. There's currently a law in Congress right now trying to get passed to allow CITs and 403bs. So we'll wait to see what comes of that. I want to fast forward here, talk about Maryland Saves and what is it and why does it impact my business. For those of you that might be sitting in the room here today that has their place of business headquartered out of Pennsylvania, you might think, oh, this rule does not apply to me. I don't operate in Maryland. However, Pennsylvania actually passed a rule to start a state level workplace retirement plan program that's going live in 2026. There's 14 states that have initiated state level plans. They're at the state level, so each one of them is going to be unique. They all have their own features, but a lot of them are following very similar concepts. So take some of the things that we talk about today as maybe things that Pennsylvania is going to use and implement or copycat from Maryland or California or Maine or Illinois on how to implement their plan. And hopefully we'll get guidance here at the end of maybe early 2024, late 2024 on how things are going to look for the beginning of 2026. So again, being that Maryland Saves is operated at a state level, right, just the state of Maryland, they're able to have different rules than everybody. And a lot of these states realize, hey, the federal government has not put into place a workplace mandate, and this is their solution. So any employer, regardless if you're not for profit, for profit, whoever, that has a automated payroll system. So automated payroll system is somebody who does not, or employer that does not calculate tax withholdings by hand, or two, has been in business for more than 2 years, has to have a workplace plan in place or join Maryland Saves, and that was effective in September of last year. So currently, Maryland Saves has been in place for about 6-8 months. There's about 1,700 employers in Maryland Saves and about 2,400 participants. You'll see here a geographic map of which states currently have a state level retirement plan. Anything in green, any state in green is one that has one in place or is about ready to start one. So I think it's important for you to understand inside of Maryland Saves who's who. There's 3 main providers there. You'll see the record keeper or custodian. That's the group that you're going to get your statement from. They're going to hold your money. You can pick certain funds in there and they'll invest in them and grow for you. That's going to be done by a collection of BNY Mellon InvestWell. Next, when your money goes into the plan, what's it buying? What funds am I putting in there for it to grow so I have something to live off in retirement? There's 4 different providers: BlackRock, T. Rowe Price, Lincoln Financial, and State Street, all high quality groups, but you have a very limited window of options available inside there. BlackRock is handling the age funds, or the target age funds. T. Rowe Price has a large cap stock fund. Lincoln Financial has the cash option. And lastly, State Street is doing the bond fund inside of there. The third piece to a retirement plan is the administrator. And the state of Maryland claims to be the administrator of that workplace plan. However, I always like to mention, and this is something we always talk with our clients about, currently, the way Maryland Saves is designed is you are still responsible for payroll deductions and submissions. You all might be familiar with the concept called as soon as administratively feasible. Anytime an employer runs payroll, remits any sort of 401k or 403b contribution, they have to get into the plan as quickly as possible. Well, this is quite important because the state of Maryland is saying that they're administrating it, but they're still carving this role out for you as the employer. So keep in mind, if you go on vacation 2-3 weeks, maybe go to Europe, make sure if payroll is still being run, contributions are still going in. And something I saw a couple weeks ago that's quite interesting within Maryland Saves, apparently there are some entities inside of the state that are actually giving the state the ability to go inside of their payroll, take that money, and make the contribution on the employer's behalf. I don't know how I feel about that, but for those of you that might feel inclined to give some of that additional responsibility to the state, please, feel free. From an employer's perspective, how are the nuts and the bolts of Maryland Saves going to work, and how are they working currently? So you've got to you've got to enroll in the Maryland Saves program through the website. Obviously, you have to withhold contributions from employees' paychecks. A couple slides earlier, I talked about automatic enrollment and automatic escalation. You're required to enroll your employees at 5%. They can change their contributions at any time. They have to be increased 1% per year to 10. Obviously, an employee can opt out or change their contribution rates, just like in a 401k or 403b. But again, the thought process is get them in the plan, get them saving so they have a good balance when they get to retirement. Employers currently cannot contribute in Maryland Saves as well. And then also, if you are domiciled in Maryland, you get to save $300 on the state filing fee. From an employee's perspective, you're going to be automatically enrolled at 5%. Obviously, you can opt out at any time. You're going to be automatically increased. The contributions go in as Roth. It's called a work-life savings account. And something that's very interesting on Maryland Saves that's similar to Secure Act 2.0 is that concept of that emergency savings account that I talked about. If you get into an emergency, you need to get money out for tires on your car or something like that. The first $1,000 inside of Maryland Saves goes into that stable fund, to that cash fund that you can pluck from at any time. And again, this is a way to get people to save, but then at the same time, kind of gives them an emergency safety net in case the unexpected happens. So there are fees involved, right, with Maryland Saves. You do have to pay the state. I guess it's going to be some sort of a revenue generator for them. And you're also going to have to pay expenses at the investment level as well, right? Whenever you're buying that BlackRock Target Fund or that T. Rowe Price stock fund. Quickly going through here, if you're an employer that's subject to Maryland Saves, what are your options? What are your alternatives if you don't want to do this? 401k, simple IRA, or SEP IRAs are a really good route to go. It's important to make sure that your employees are getting good personalized one-on-one guidance, make sure that they're making the right decisions with their money besides just saving in an IRA. And for the sake of time, I do want to shift forward here to one of my last slides and talk about ways that you can design a 401k plan to really maximize the money that's going to leadership while potentially giving little to non-ownership or maybe some of the lesser compensated people. And there's three buckets of contributions inside of a workplace plan. And you'll see the Avengers analogy here for dental practice. We work with a lot of dentists. You'll see the employee on the very far right, very far left. You'll see their compensation. Oftentimes, you as an employer have to give what's called a safe harbor to allow yourself to maximize your contributions. That's that first bucket. Usually that's 3%. The next one there's profit sharing. Because you give 3% of safe harbor to your non-owners, non-leadership, you're able to maximize a lot of your profit sharing contributions. And then third, also because you gave that safe harbor, you can put a significant amount of money out of your own paycheck into your 401k, 403b, what have it. And here at the very bottom right, you can really stack the benefits in your favor if you have that desire. As we're coming to a close here, where does Kampstra Wealth Management fit with all of this? As the advisor, we really like to be the quarterback. We work with SEK and their third-party administration team quite closely to provide top quality service for retirement plans for your employer. We really want to make sure your employees value the benefits that they're getting. And with Secure Act 2.0, there's a significant amount of customization. And really, it just takes time to dive through the weeds and figure out what you want to allow your employees to do or not to do. So, thank you.